Welcome to the UK Dementia and Palliative Care Conference 2025 podcast, brought to you by Rowcroft Hospice. Recorded at the beautiful Buckfast Abbey Conference Centre in Devon, this series explores the critical role of dementia and palliative care in supporting those living with dementia. Across these episodes, we'll be sharing expert insights, real-life experiences, and innovative approaches to improving care. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Supporting family carers of people with dementia, facilitated by Rachel Johnstone, Regional Account Manager, Dementia UK.
So aims of this workshop. So really, I'm going to break this down into 4 parts. I'm going to start off really by just having a little bit of a challenge about our mental model when we think about what is a family carer. Because for me, who do we hold in our mind? And that's the absolute key in order to be able to deliver relationship-centred care, to understand what we mean by family in the broadest sense. I'm going to also touch upon what some of the research says around supporting family carers at end of life. In pulling this workshop together, I thought what one model would be useful for you as a take-home. So I'm going to share with you Mason's model of safe uncertainty. And I'm sure the slides will be available, so there'll be references at the end for you to look through. So, what do we mean by family? Because I think sometimes when we think about family carers, we have that sort of mental model in our head. And that's sometimes that visual image that we have of that family is who we can sort of build our services on. But we've seen huge changes in family dynamics, societal changes, and people are living much further apart from each other than they ever used to. Family sizes are getting smaller. As we know, people are living longer. And actually what this means is there are fewer available family carers, which is really significant because, as we know, family carers are the backbone of dementia care, and our NHS would not survive without them. So actually we're really seeing a rise of things like non-kin carers, so where care isn't provided by a relative. And the Care Act 2014 makes provisions for really understanding, care isn't just about family members, it's about friends, neighbours, colleagues, as well as family members. And about 15% of people support a non-kin relationship, such as a friend or neighbour. And there's been some research which has found that friends tend to involve specialist palliative care services sooner and more often perhaps than family members would do. And of course, having a family member living with a loved one at home is a protective factor in terms of prevention of hospital admission. So understanding the nature and the dynamics of that caring relationship is really important. The second point I wanted to briefly reflect on is actually the meaning of family can be very different for very different sort of communities. So, for example, for some people who identify as LGBTQ+, they may well have been estranged, actually, from their family due to rejection or discrimination in the past. So, for that reason, care may well more be provided by what we call chosen family or family of choice, which is a terminology that came to the HIV or AIDS crisis when biological sort of family members actually rejected that end-of-life care. So I think, it's really important about not making those assumptions and understanding the strengths of those sort of different relationships. We know about 15% of families care at a distance. So actually what we're doing, is that relevant for those carers who are actually supporting at a distance? And again, even more so in Devon, where we've got the highest population of people over 65 and the highest index of deprivation for those sort of dispersed villages. So again, kind of thinking about that, of course, carers themselves may be living with their own diagnosis of dementia, diagnosed or undiagnosed sort of dementia, and thinking about sort of how carers actually identify. So of course, not every carer is even comfortable with the term carer, and they don't always see it as that sort of discrete role. And according to the NHS website, it takes on average 2 years for people to actually see their role as a carer. So, it's very much not that one size sort of fits all, and we can't expect to be delivering the same service to everyone, expect we're going to get that same sort of level of support. And again, plans don't always work out like they do in that top image. Anyone come across eco maps before? Some of you might have done, or even genograms. So whereas genograms might actually think about your family members, eco-maps are a really, really great tool for thinking not just about the impact of family members, but friends, what's happening within the community, the compassionate communities movement. And Plymouth is one of the first compassionate cities. So mapping out that support around the carer, using eco-maps as a conversation tool, and the different strength of lines means the types of relationships. So bold being a strong connection, the dotted line means attention tenuous link. A jagged line might be there's a very tempestuous relationship there. So really, really useful tool for helping us understand what that support network looks like around family. And I'm really happy to follow up some more information about EcoMaps, because a really, really, really useful tool. This slide, I could have put any number of different sort of challenges that carers face and what the research says around what's needed to provide that support. So we know huge challenge around navigating the system. I mean, again, quite often people living with dementia got on average 4 other comorbidities. The dementia care pathway, frailty pathway, where do we sort of go sort of for that support? Emotional fusion, where actually that's when sometimes the emotions of one person become so wrapped up in the other. There's challenges around that loss of sort of sense of identity. And St Christopher's Hospice have got a really useful toolkit on supporting carers, some very practical advice there. And just little things that carers state that they can feel invisible to others, particularly when they feel that professionals are only interacting with them because of their role as a carer, as opposed to really being treated as an individual and being thinking much more about their needs. So moving on to this, the one thing obviously we do know about dementia is that unpredictable everyday sort of realities. There isn't a toolkit of interventions. I can't sort of say, this is what I'm going to present to you around how we support family carers, because as we know, families are so different. And actually, one thing is certain is about living with the unpredictable everyday reality. So what I wanted to do is just to introduce you, if you haven't come across this before, to a model that I feel is quite a useful model, or a lens through which not only can we help carers navigate the unpredictable everyday reality of dementia, but can also help us as practitioners be comfortable with not knowing the answers and having that magic wand that we often wish we had. So has anyone come across Mason's model of safe uncertainty before? No. So according to this model, there's 4 states of being. So unsafe uncertainty, where she is a carer completely floundering, no idea, everything feels very, very uncertain. We don't know what the right course of action is, and it just feels completely unsafe and unsettling to us as carers. Unsafe certainty, where actually we might know what it is we need to do, but actually that in itself is not resting comfortably with us as a carer. Safe certainty, well, yeah, we know what we're going to do. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, this feels great. Which, of course, life is not like that, and dementia care is not like that. And then the concept of safe uncertainty, which I'm going to go on to describe. So quite often when carers come to us sort of for support, or when we're reaching out as carers, we're either doing so from that position of safe uncertainty, feeling completely at sea, where do I go, what do I do? Or safe certainty, where we might have an idea around what we think the next step would be, but that itself is full of risks. And often families are coming looking for that safe certainty. What can I do? What's the answers here? What's going to happen? And sometimes we can put expectations on ourselves and the nature of the therapeutic relationship to think, right, okay, we'll find that answer. But of course, that's not what life's like. And I think, palliative care in particular, there's so much uncertainty to have to kind of contend with. The when might the person die? The where, will it be possible for the person with dementia to die at home? The how quickly will things progress? How can I actually manage? And then since we can't have answers to those questions, rather the focus then is actually thinking from our frame of reference, how can I make sure that this carer feels comfortable to sit with uncertainty. So rather than trying to resolve things, how can we make sure that uncertainty can feel safer? So rather than aiming to get families to that position of safe certainty, which we know is unrealistic, consciously we're thinking, how can I move that family towards a position of safe uncertainty? And this means very much working side by side with carers, so being that bystander. And we know from some of the research that St Christopher's Hospice have done is the last thing carers want is to feel professionalised. What they want is that opportunity to have that dialogue, to be walking through things actually together. It also means around, okay, how can we actually support with sort of coping skills? How can we actually make sure we're explaining so that people know what to expect actually in terms of progression of dementia? Because I think one of the things that struck from Liz's presentation this morning, 9 out of 10 people also didn't know that dementia was the leading, cause of death. And I think, coming at things from a safe uncertainty perspective can help us frame the conversations that we have with carers. Saying things like, what is it that's making you feel unsafe or unsettled at the moment? What knowledge might make you feel sort of safer? What do you think the future might look like? And what might these future possibilities mean to you and your family? And what do I need to know to give you the best care I can today? So it changed that frame of reference with actually how we actually interact and support carers to consciously thinking about that sort of safe uncertainty model. And of course, this is such a neat sort of segue really into advanced care planning as a tool, because that's all about really supporting people to get to positions of safe uncertainty. It promotes conversations about sort of different kind of scenarios people might come up against. How might we manage these sort of different scenarios? Quick plug, I've got sort of a resources slide at the end, and this Rowcroft Hospice themselves got a great Planning for the Future hub, which highlights just how to have sort of some of these advanced care planning conversations. It's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour in the interest of time, but I just wanted to share that with you because I think that's a really useful frame of reference for us to be consciously thinking about things.
That's it for this episode of the UK Dementia and Palliative Care Conference 2025 podcast. A huge thank you to our sponsors, Majestic Holidays, Wallens, Amica Care, MC Hearing and Audley, and to Dementia UK for their invaluable support. This series is recorded and produced by iNarrator and proudly hosted by Rowcroft Hospice. Links to resources mentioned are available in the show notes. If you found this discussion valuable, please share it and stay tuned for more thought-provoking conversations. Until next time, take care.